Hello everybody, my name is Hjalte and this is the 5th episode of our Ultimate Sea Ice playthrough. If you're joining us for the first time, there's a link in the top right hand corner to episode 1 and for the latest episode as well. So last time we got a psychic suppression quest that gave us our second colonist with the rather unfortunate nickname Table. But as you can see, his stats are kind of awesome and he complements K well. He has fast learner, which is the best trait in my opinion. In fact, it's so good that I refuse to give it to any of my starting pawns in any playthrough. He's also a night owl, which isn't optimal for the biome because it's cold at night. However, it is going to be helpful with our research. And with fast learner, he will increase his intellect faster than K. He won't do plant work though, but that's fine, we have K for that. Not to mention that we don't actually have any plants, so it's not a major concern at the moment. So all in all, we're quite happy with him. You may have deduced that we had little incidents last episode. Table went on a food binge, which was really Anna Kendrick's fault. Don't ask, it's a whole thing between us now, so I don't want to get into it again. But you can also see that he has a scar, in fact the worst possible scar in terms of pain, which gives him a constant -10 debuff and decreases his manipulation, which is obviously less than ideal, but there are limits to how generous we can expect Randy to be. All we can do is try to keep him happy and working, but if he can't adjust to life on sea ice, Kay may have to suggest he goes winter bathing and lock the door behind him. But hopefully it won't come to that. Finally, having a night owl in our colony reduces the speed of the playthrough if we continue to follow their days as we have till now. Therefore, I've decided to focus on K, which means that we won't be joining Table for his nightly research, meals or recreation, but only if something happens besides that. If you have an opinion on that, please feel free to write it in the comment section, because I would love to hear your feedback and improve these videos accordingly. But enough about that, let's get started. Table will return to his bed rest. We could let him sleep in K's bed, but his catharsis mean we're not overly concerned with his mood at the moment. And it is frankly a bit more micromanagement than I'm willing to do, both for your viewing pleasure and my sanity, for a comparatively small gain. So we'll return to them later on. Well, there's no reason not to have our table up again. You do that? Table is eager to work. Alas, you'll have to wait a bit longer. Kay's also about ready to go to bed, so we'll come back to them when she gets up. Kay's up and about, starting her day off with breakfast before chilling with Table for a bit. That is also pretty much the only advantage of having two pawns that do the same thing, leaving one of them idle. If you have enough recreational options, they're going to get plenty of that and the resulting buff. For now, Kay's going back to work, Table back to bed, and once again, we'll leave them in peace. Since we won't be getting the steel, we best cancel this one and move the other one there, so Kay can get rid of that darkness debuff. Reconnect. And there we are. Let's check on Kay's mood. The debuff is gone, however she already has the stuck indoors debuff, which is likely to get worse as we get to winter. And no, we are still not going to do anything about that ratty apparel. I can't remember, was it 4.5 days the suppression lasted? So we're only 2 days into it and it lasts for 4.7 days, so it'll be a little while. By the way, if you're wondering why we're using K over Table to research despite her consciousness being halved, it's because experience in RimWorld is based on time spent doing a task, not the level of success. And K will be our primary researcher, as Table is better at construction, mining, medical and crafting, which leaves K with plants, social and intellect. And in the bigger picture, a couple of days of decreased efficiency means little. That also means that if you want to train crafting by making clothes, don't use an electric bench, because it will produce the garment faster. Naturally, that's only relevant if you don't have an endless supply of materials. But it seems that Randy has completely forgotten about us. Table is still healing and Kay will spend the rest of the day researching. Nothing's going to happen for the rest of the day, so we're simply gonna come back to them tomorrow. Kay is up with a snap and she will enjoy Table's company for a little while before she takes over for him and he returns to his bed rest. Let's see how their relationship is coming along. 25, that's pretty good after just a couple of days. And I am admittedly a bit curious about what his perspective was in that deep conversation about self-replicating machines. I want one? Or two? Well, I suppose you wouldn't need to. Anyway, there we go, and with that we're once more about to leave them for a bit. Table is up and has enjoyed his breakfast. Now he's competing for Kay's attention, which seems a little selfish given that she's barely functioning as it is. So I think it's about time that Table gets something to do. Let's have him take care of that last bit of slack. He should be well enough to handle that. That's going to put us to 44 units of steel, which means that we could deconstruct our table in order to build a heater or a bed, but we're going to try to avoid that for now. And you did it without losing your mind. That's progress, Table. But I don't trust you quite yet, so back inside with ya. Just as one of our snaps expired, Table has finally fully healed, which means it's time for him to make the second attempt at what I'm presuming is his Everest. Despite having lost his Caphesis, he isn't a major break risk due to his fully satisfied recreation, so that seems promising, especially since he'll receive an additional 10 point boost from his burning passion for mining. Then we just have to hope that he doesn't break on his way back. Table is already at 30%, but I'm going to push him, probably too hard, because we have Kay ready to provide backup and 2 more runs like this and he'll probably finish that tile. Pushing him here has the added benefit of helping us finding the sweet spot, meaning how many percent of hypothermia he can take at the steel without being down before he gets back. But with 37%, he's probably not going to make it all the way, but it will give us some indication of how close we can come to that. And of course Kay's timing is impeccable as she has decided to leave Table to his own devices and get some sleep. We are going to let her do that though, because the additional distance should be a relatively insignificant factor. Table has already gotten his first frostbite, which seems to confirm that 37% was too high. And notice how he's moving here. Pawns in RimWorld are notorious for taking illogical paths. Somehow a pawn can always make a straight line between A and B into a half circle or even worse. The way to get around that is drafting them. Although that's not going to matter in this case. Okay, go help Table, will ya? Table is slightly further away than I anticipated, but he will survive the trip even when K is suppressed. But as usual, Randy isn't going to pass on an opportunity to mess with us because we have the first raid of the episode. The Trogo Confederacy is attacking us. Presumably they're slavers looking for new stock. Fortunately, they have decided to carefully plan their attack. At 123 degrees below zero, that seems optimistic, so we shouldn't have much of an issue with them. Well, it's just one raider and Kuro here is female, so she's also hit by the psychic suppression that's been plaguing us. And with only a comfortable temperature of minus 39 degrees, she's almost certainly not going to make it to us. There's also nothing impressive about her gear, so we'll leave her for now while Kay is going to tend to Table. We will also cure a meal for her. Yeah, that's a lot of frostbites. But at worst, he'll just lose a finger or two, and that's a small sacrifice for his supreme leader. Well, Table is already capable of walking, and since he has fast learner and higher medical, he's our designated doctor. He also isn't suppressed, so we'll let him tend to himself and Kay will go to bed because it's way past her bedtime. Kuro has finally devised a brilliant strategy and begun her assault. There she is. From the look of things, she won't make it 10 tiles though, so she'll be way too far off for us to retrieve her. I actually don't believe our raider made it 5 tiles, so that's a fairly uneventful event there. Meanwhile, Table will continue to bandage himself and we'll join them again in a bit. It's almost noon and Table is just about finished tending to himself, so he's going to grab some grub and get to bed. Kay gets up shortly after and enthusiastically runs to the research table, so we'll let her do that in peace. Alright, I think we should probably move a heater to the other side of the room now. Normally that would get rid of the darkness debuff, however as Table is a night owl, that's not a problem. What it will do is increase work speed, and we can expect him to get many more frostbites and possibly beatings in the future. We'll just have to reconnect that now. By the way, it's essentially the same reason why Kay's still carrying the rifle. Table is a better shot but also much more likely to have a break, and he has better melee than Kay. So giving him not only the best weapon but the only one could be rather risky. If we have a raid that might actually make it to our base, we have plenty of time to switch weapons between them. In the last episode I talked about getting those chinchilla pants off of Table because of their value. Now we let him keep them to increase his insulation while he mined. However, it is late September now and we have hit 130 degrees below zero. He won't be mining against this year most likely. So we'll take them off him to preserve them at 96%. That should also have the added benefit of protecting us against a targeted tantrum. You may remember that we didn't try to deconstruct either of the 2 ship chunks left on the map to ensure that we wouldn't be brought to a complete standstill because we didn't have any components or means to get them. Those pans should protect our components now. It should be noted that there doesn't seem to be a clear consistency in what is targeted during a tantrum, but in my experience they tend to go for whatever is most expensive per unit. Later in the game though, my pawns always seem to love beating up on chem fuel, anti-grain warheads, that sort of thing. Basically anything that goes boom. Anyway, I was a bit too slow there, but the rifle will survive. Excellent, just as Kay picks up the rifle, Randy tells us that the psychic suppression is over. And Table is about to wake up and he is not happy. Let's give him those blue fur pants on. Oops, wrong pawn. There we go. And Table is only a minor risk now, which is to be expected out here. He's also about to start his shift at the research table, so unless something happens we'll come back to them in the morning. The night transpired without incidents, besides Table using his food allowance. Kay's about to get up and I think it's time to butcher our second mega sloth. So let's put the stove up here. Well, probably shouldn't block the door. So we'll just remove Table's spot instead so we can use the bed as a chair. We also need to get the butcher table up. In hindsight, I should probably have put the butcher table up in the bedroom instead of the stove and simply exchange them when we were done. Once Kay's done relaxing, she'll probably uninstall the table and put up the butcher table. Alright, let's butcher it. Need material. Have I suspended the wrong one or what? Ah, no, the sloth is just too big. I thought Kay had already put it down. Because the system can't account for something that's being carried from A to B. We need to reconnect the heater though. Which also means that we're going to have to wait on Kay's hypothermia, so we'll return in a bit. While Kay waited for her hypothermia to dissipate, she grabbed a little meal and she's now ready to get to work. Now just as Kay sets about butchering, one of our heaters breaks down so Table can deal with that. Meanwhile, Kay has finished butchering, so let's uninstall that again. Unforbid the door. Let's expand the storage zone again. And move the heater and table back. Let's have Table take care of that once he's done with the heater, so Kay can go straight to cooking. However, before she gets started, Randy seems to think that 288 units of meat isn't enough to keep our colony going, so he sends manhunters to us. Panthers. 2 panthers aren't particularly good manhunters to get in this biome, but we can't complain about additional food, so we'll just forbid the door. Meanwhile, Kay's just going to move things out of the way so she can get started. As you can see, Table has also chosen a dark spot in our freezer to sleep in, and we'll let him do that. Our panthers has been downed by the weather, and one of them is a bit far from our base, so it must have been the runt of the litter. But we won't go out to put them out of their misery this time around, because we don't actually have a place to put them right now, and I would like to be able to take the stove down today. We're going to let Kay work in peace now, and join them again once she's done. Kay has finished cooking and added 28 meals to our storage, along with the total 189 units of heavy fur. And she's currently making some room for our panthers who have long since expired. Meanwhile, Table has gotten up and gone straight to work, although it is about time for him to eat. Let's have Table uninstall that now. Haul it too, please. Then we'll just put up a spot for him again. There we go. Now Kay's also back with the second panther, so it's time for her to take a load off. Forbid that too. Now Kay is going to take over researching. We are however going to give her 2 to Table so he gets a little more insulation. The reason for that is that we are above minus 100 degrees right now, which means Table is going to make a run for that steel. It isn't great taking the 2 off of Kay, because she might start getting hypothermia in our freezer, but if Table can mine a tile, we will certainly build a heater and that will make it a non-issue. We will also switch that elephant lever out, and that put his comfortable temperature around half the actual temperature, and hopefully that will be enough to keep him on his legs. Alright, let's set Table to mine again. This will likely induce a major break, but not an extreme one, and that's fine. Now, admittedly, I am imagining all of you going, "This guy is out of his mind," which, while not incorrect, has nothing to do with this strategy. Table's scar and of course the lack of better clothing means if he goes outside the door, he's going to have a break sooner rather than later. And we would much prefer he has a break now instead of when it's minus 120 or 150 degrees outside. Already? Come on, Table. You're only at 18%. I would have thought you could at least hold out till you hit minor. So let's have Kay eat straight away then. Yeah, I know you want to sleep, Kay, but this is what happens when you have a night owl in your colony. Alright, so Kay's going to wait inside by the door till Table gets closer, and then she's going to hurt him. If you're wondering why we don't convert our bedroom into a prison and try to arrest him, it's because they sometimes fight when they are arrested, and we don't want to risk Kay losing that fight. Serious hypothermia, that's helpful. And for some reason Randy has decided that violence and quests go well together, so we have the first one of the episode. Warden for hire. Marcia of the Exodus Empire wants our help keeping 4 prisoners for 2 days. The prisoners have gutworms and pikemen are on their tail. Now pikemen are one of the new additions to the mech family. They are essentially support snipers. But we don't have the food or the space for that. It's also rather bad timing, so we can safely discard that. Well, at least the pants worked as intended. But it also cost us around 32%, and the bed took a bit of beating too. Well, okay. Better put him to bed, repair yours and go to sleep, and we'll check back on you in the morning, cause we only want 1 break at a time. It's 7 AM and Table is capable of walking again, so he can start patching himself up. Kay's up and about and ready for some breakfast, while Table continues to bandage himself, cause Kay don't mess around. So it's noon and Table is finally done, so he'll enjoy a snack and go to bed. Meanwhile, Kay will grab her lunch in a minute and continue researching, so we'll check back on them later. The most exciting thing in Kay's schedule for today is throwing a few horseshoes. However, Table also feels like this is an appropriate time to go mining, but I have to disagree. Let's get Kay back inside and Table back to bed, and then we'll join them again in the morning. Kay has been up for a while now. However, she went straight for the research table, so I figured we should leave her to it. Kay has decided to get a bit of rec in, and Table jumps at the opportunity to fill in at the research table. Although he shouldn't be up at the moment, but it does have the added benefit of them improving upon their relationship, and the catharsis should keep Table from having another break. It's time for Table to relax, and although Kay believes she can succeed where Table fails, I think it best that she returns to her research. A few hours later, Table has fully satisfied his recreational needs and just gone to bed. However, he does need to eat, so he'll enjoy a succulent meal now before returning to bed, and we'll leave Kay to it. It's time for Kay's dinner, and we have yet another calm day for our 2 colonists, so we'll have to rejoin them in the morning. The temperature has reached 135 degrees below zero, and I believe it's time to put up an additional safety net to avoid any hypothermia related mishaps. That is simply to avoid them attempting to go mining, trying to collect something I might have forgotten to forbid, that's too far away, that sort of thing. It is by no means something that you have to do, but our pawns don't always consider their own lives important, and I'm easily distracted from whatever I'm doing, so I find it helpful being forced to actively order them further away from the base when that's needed. Kay's going to start the day with some rec time. Meanwhile, Table will go to bed. Kay, you better get back inside. But Kay is very optimistic, thinking that she could go for a second round, so let's forbid that door. It's also about time for her lunch, and same is true for Table, but his catharsis is almost over, so he'll have a regular meal when he gets up. We'll cue that for Kay and come back to them later. We join them again just as Table becomes malnourished. However, he should get up soon, so we won't do anything about it, cause we're more focused on Kay having hypothermia indoors, which means it's time to deconstruct something, because it's only around minus 140 degrees and we still haven't hit December, so it's going to get colder. However, Kay's hypothermia seems to hold steady, so we're going to let it play out in the hope that we can avoid deconstructing our table, so the other table will go back to bed and Kay will follow in a few hours. In hindsight, given that we're only missing 6 units of steel for another heater, we should probably have removed 2 of the corners of our freezer, which should have given us 8 units of steel, and the heater would of course more than make up for the fall in insulation. But it simply didn't occur to me at the time to destroy their lovely triangle home. However, Kay's off to bed, which will get rid of her hypothermia for now, so we're going to let them sleep, although Table will get up in a few hours to research. Kay hasn't quite gotten her beauty sleep yet, but it occurred to me that it had been a while since we checked on how their skills were coming along. Since Kay came to this frozen wastes, she has improved her shooting a little bit, but mostly she has research, and it shows, because she's already hit 10 in intellect, which is great. But what might be a bit more surprising is that she's gotten 3 skill points, despite no passion, in melee, exclusively from beating on Table. If he continues to break, she might end up becoming a melee fighter at this rate. Kay has woken up and she's starting the day with some breakfast, and like Table, she will also take a bit of time to relax before they make the switch and Table goes back to bed. So we can check on how his skills are coming along. Not much has happened there though. His intellect has increased by 2 and medical 1, which isn't surprising, since he seems to be constantly either having a mental break or be recovering from the well-deserved beating he received for breaking. Yeah, I would make a great dad. And I just realized that this is the internet, so I have to say, don't hurt your bloody kids. In fact, here's a top tip for you. Don't hurt people. It's a vile habit. If you do have some pinned up aggression, take it out on defenseless pawns. Nothing brings a smile to your face like a good massacre. And back to our regularly scheduled programming. As the temperature is edging towards 150 degrees below zero on the last day of September, our freezer has hit minus 40 degrees and it's time to deconstruct the table. Unforbid the door and our components. We're down to 15 units of steel, along with 21 components, assuming that Table doesn't botch it. Best have him wait till his hypothermia is gone. As you can see, he's down to 2 bruises, and his consciousness and manipulation will increase by 2 once his hypothermia gets below 3%. Ah, damn it. If this is targeted, he's definitely destroying it. Well, nothing we can do about that now, but he is starting to annoy me, and that's often lethal to my colonist self. Oh, well, that's excellent. We don't even remotely care about a normal tantrum. Well, this is an interesting spot. I would frankly consider this an unsatisfying way for him to go. Kay still only has 2 in shooting and 0 in medical. Just putting that out there, Table. But I believe Kay is considerably more tolerant than I am, and she feels that he can still be of use to us. In spite of this being his 3rd or 4th break, I've lost count already. In what, 9 days? Wow, that's that's pretty terrible. Okay, you old softy, I hope your mercy will be rewarded, cause he's just eating all your food as it is. But Table is already capable of walking again. Now we just have to wait for his hypothermia to dissipate so he can build that heater. Kay has gotten minor hypothermia again, so let's send her into the bedroom. Let's forbid the outer door just to be on the safe side. and it's time to get that heater up and running, and for Kay to get back to work. Reconnected. We also need to turn the maximum temperature down, because we need the room to remain below 0 degrees, although that shouldn't be a problem during the winter. Now that's done, we'll leave them to it and rejoin them in a bit. It's time for Kay's dinner, which means Table is going to want to take over, so let's just draft him till she's done eating. We have also gone below minus 150 degrees, as we're about to turn the calendar page to December. And that just made me sound like a fossil, didn't it? We all know that none of us has turned a page offline in a decade. And with that, we have officially entered winter. By the way, since Kay insists on keeping Table around, what do you think about calling them Cable? Or do you have a better name for them? Let me know in the comments. But for now, I'll just use Cable in the expectation of your overwhelming support. Hashtag Cable forever. With absolutely no sense of irony. Anyway, I think it's about time to end today's episode. So if you want to find out what happens next, click the subscribe button. As always, if you have any comments, questions or requests, write them in the comment section and I'll be sure to get back to you. Lastly, if you enjoy the video, leave a like, it'll be much appreciated. Thanks for joining us.